Okay, we are officially movie stars. And I want to welcome all of you to Stronger Memory, the program. And the meeting's being recorded because a couple members may not be able to join us today. We have 8 in our group. And this way they'll be able to listen and hear the questions and kind of hear what we talked about. Patricia, you're looking. Oh, okay. Okay, so right now, I'll wait for Patricia to come back. I think that actually, no, what I'd like to do is have everybody introduce themselves and do 2 things. I've had a chance to talk a little bit about what the program is. You've heard the introduction when we had the folks from Goodwin House on, and we had Wendy Liebrick on. So she talked about her experiences. So as you introduce yourself, and as we go through the purpose of today, I'm going to walk through the book. I'm going to answer any questions you have about the book and the process. But before we get into that, I thought we could introduce ourselves and maybe talk about why are you interested in this program?
Pick on somebody.
Pick on somebody. Don, introduce yourself and why are you interested in this program?
Good afternoon. I'm Don Beacom, married to Darcy. I'm on the board of NNN. I'm the treasurer, and I'm interested in this program because concerns about memory are something we're all going to have to deal with as we get older. And being better prepared for it is going to be an advantage.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.
And Carol just joined us, but we'll go ahead. How about I introduce myself? I'm Darcy Beacom, and also been with NNN. You guys, I'm happy to see all of your faces. My goal in this, the reason I was interested is because I have started forgetting things. And sometimes and it's not the normal it's senior moment kind of forgetting. Sometimes I'll just literally forget. And I'll talk to somebody and they'll say, well, you told me that already. So I started getting a little bit worried. And then I heard about this program and I got even more excited because first, it's in our community's wheelhouse, right? This is something all of us as we age, are going to have normal aging issues with memory. But I thought this program sounded so promising. I am excited because I think it's going to help me with my focus. And anything that helps me with my focus is good in my book. So how about you, Patricia?
Well, buying Post-it notes has gotten too expensive. I buy tons of Post-it notes by the huge package. And I have them everywhere. And I think that's kind of extreme. And then maybe it's good I decided on this course because a couple of weeks ago, I scared myself really bad. I had a couple of forgettings that were very big things that there's no way that you could possibly forget them. And then one of them had only been about 5 days ago. And I had to have somebody else tell me that I really did do something 5 days ago. And I just could not remember it. So between that and the Post-it notes, I figured that's a very good reason.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Kate.
I'm Kate Coffey, and I have been a member just about a year, I think. And it just struck me as something that I would be interested in. Some of you already heard my parents both had dementia, different types, different timing. One went quick, one didn't, so different experiences. But I've felt like this was going to be an issue for me for a long time, and I've never had a good memory. So that's definitely a worrisome thing. And I do forget things, although I have done some things, little mini tests, and I'm more normal aging according to these little magazine tests, So I'm not like over the edge according to several of those, but I am a little worried. And I was very encouraged by the woman her son who made this course, from where she was headed to how she came across in the time that we spent with her was really impressive to me. And I thought anything I can glean from this that would help me get on that path would be great.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks. All right, I'm just going in order as you guys are on my screen, just in case you want to know. Sharon, you're next, and you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Sharon Link. I don't know that I'm worried about myself yet, and it sounds like you can pick it up at any time and start. What I'm really concerned about my dad. He's 93, and the example I'll use that sort of has a humorous bent is he'll talk about his friends, how they'll repeat the same thing to him over and over and over, and he gets so tired of it, and he does the exact same thing to me. And he has no clue he's doing it. So I thought I sort of broached the subject to him, explained a little bit about what the 3 types of exercises are, and he didn't say anything like, oh, that's stupid or anything like that. So it's like, maybe he'll be amenable to this. So I'm wanting to learn it more for my dad than I am for myself at this moment.
That's great. Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Freeman, and pretty much what everyone else had to say. I'm getting a little nervous about the things that I'm forgetting, and I always think about when we were younger, we said, oh, if you forget something, it probably wasn't that important. That's not applying anymore. I'm forgetting things, and if I don't have lists, if I don't have my calendar on my phone, I won't know what I'm doing from day to day sometimes. And sometimes I just plain forget to look at the list. And Post-it notes. I bought the extra sticky kind so that they could stick anywhere.
Yeah.
But then it's really hard to sort through all of those things all the time. So I'm having trouble focusing, getting myself organized. It's so easy for me to actually kind of lose track of time sometimes as well.
Thank you. Ginger.
I pretty much agree with most of what's said. I find it's hard for me to focus on something and finish something from start to finish without getting distracted and bouncing around doing whatever. And I'm forgetful. Somebody will tell me a conversation I had 2 weeks ago and I have no memory of it. And Post-it notes. Yeah, I haven't bought the jumbo pack, but I do find myself using more Post-it notes than I have in the past. So yeah, pretty much, yeah, the focusing and remembering. So I figure this looks interesting. Give it a shot. What have you got to lose? If anything, if it doesn't work, well, nothing lost, but hopefully it'll help somehow to some extent.
So I'm hearing a couple of things. One, we all ought to be buying stock in whoever makes Post-it
3M.
notes. But very common themes here, very common themes for all of us. And that should be, I think, somewhat comforting, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not all by myself. This isn't just about me. So for today's introduction, I do want to go through the book. I've had a chance to sit with a couple of you and actually go page by page, but we're going to do that. We're also going to get on the same page in terms of are the logistics of the meeting going to work for everybody? Do we have permission to share with each other, and are you comfortable sharing with each other? And that's important, because if we're going to be part of a group that's together for up to 12 weeks, maybe longer, I think hopefully that we'll feel that we can trust each other. And if there's something that we're uncomfortable with, that it's totally fine to say, yeah, I don't want to talk about that one right now, which is okay. The whole point of Stronger Memory, the program, the principle behind it, is because executive function, which is how we make our decisions, whether it's in the moment or longer term planning, is in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, which is this part up here. It's like 10% of our brain. And the prefrontal cortex is stimulated by some of these simple things that we're going to do in this program. And in order for the executive functioning part of our lives to work most efficiently, the prefrontal cortex needs to reach into memories. And some of our longest memories are the ones that we learned when we were just little munchkins, kids growing up. So what the science has shown is that when the prefrontal cortex is stimulated, if you're reading, or if you're doing simple math, or you're just in the process of trying to solve a problem, they can see the areas of the brain that are stimulated. They can light up. They put all those dyes in people, and then they have them do things or think about things, and they can see what part of the brain lights up. So to me, that was actually really fascinating, because that's knowing where the brain is trying to reach when you're trying to remember something helps me understand, oh, why are we doing some of these things the way we're doing them? So for this program, as we heard from Wendy and Wendy Liebrecht, the woman who was the purpose for why the program was built, and then from the facilitators at Goodwin House, they've really tracked now over a year or 2 years, people who have been in this program, who have taken it upon themselves to try to get that brain working again. And they found that people do notice a difference. And for people, and Sharon, this may be something that may resonate with you based on where you're at, it's not so much regaining something you've lost, but it's maybe plateauing, keeping it from going away. The more, it's like any exercise, the more exercise you do, if you do too much, you can hurt yourself. If you don't do enough, you can hurt yourself. But the idea is, wherever you're at in 4 weeks, 12 weeks, if you don't notice something remarkable, the question is, are you noticing that you are still at your same plane? So what I heard was, we're all at different levels of comfort with where we're at and how we feel, what we remember and what we do. And that's okay. The nice thing, I think, is that we're all taking steps to do something about it, self-improvement, or to maybe help your dad, Sharon, or help your brother, Kate. It's a technique. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, are there any questions so far?
I have a question about what you said. Is it the case that we just stopped using it as much as we used to, or does the body actually change?
No, it's not that you use it. I think it's just part of aging. I mean, the brain,
part of what happens.
it's just part of what happens. And some people, you're going to know some people who are, 100 and they seem sharp as a tack. They're still going to have some things that they're forgetful at. So it doesn't, for people who have had a medical diagnosis of like mild cognitive impairment, or maybe even early dementia, those folks are likely to see some improvement, but the question is, at what point are they in their memory function? And but overall, your brain is building new cells. It just doesn't build them as fast when we get older. So I'd like to, I'm not really able to do too much. Everybody, do you have your handy dandy binder? Yes. Okay. Because it's hard for me on this camera to hold this binder up and go through it. But what I'd like us to do is just follow along, because just the organization of the binder, understanding that is going to be helpful, I think. How many of you have already played with it or gone through it?
Did a little bit.
Okay. All right, so the first thing you see is the little history behind the Stronger Memory Program, and we've talked about that, and we saw Wendy talk about it as well. So I'm not going to go into that, but there's on page, it says page 12, but it's really the frequently asked questions page. I'd really like to make sure that, first of all, if you haven't had a chance to read that, I would like actually to go through the FAQs, just because it's right behind the introduction. So it's technically the second page of your binder before the calendar. So
I went directly from the first page to the calendar with no page in between.
well, that's not right, Carol. I can email you the page, but let me just read them, or maybe we can read them together. The first question is there an answer key for the math exercises? The answer is no. And the reason for why there's no answer key is because it doesn't matter whether you get them right or wrong. That's not the point. The point is that you do them and that you set goals for yourself in the 10 minutes that you do them, because it's accessing a part of the brain that your prefrontal cortex will really appreciate. So at no time should you fret about whether you got the answers right or wrong. There is another point about why is the math so easy? Some of you are going to look at, especially the first several sections, you're going to go, why am I doing this? This is simple math. Again, it's not about the problem, but as you go through these, you're going to see it feels a little tricky. The order changes. The first ones will be maybe adding up and down, then they'll maybe reverse the numbers. So as you go through these sections of the math, it's all about how quickly can you process the question, how quickly can you answer the question, right or wrong, but force yourself to take the time to answer every single problem on the page. That's what's important. The average in 10 minutes, most people, especially early on, can get anywhere from 2 to 4 pages done. And the recommendation from the folks who have done this is after you've done 4 pages, even if you're done in 5 minutes, go ahead and stop. That's plenty, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to stress ourselves that, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time, or oh my gosh, I only got 4 pages, or oh my gosh, I only got 1 page done. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that you let yourself go through the exercises. There's a question about handwriting, and a couple of you, it's hard to handwrite. Why can't I just type? Or it hurts to handwrite. The general thinking is that if it truly is a hardship for you to handwrite when we do our handwriting exercises, that's okay. Spend a little more time on the reading. If you can write it all, please do, but not to the point where it's painful or that it is just so difficult, again, that you're causing stress. Stress is the brain's enemy. Oh, Carol raised her hand. Yes. Where are you, Carol?
Yeah, I actually was kind of wondering if
Where'd you go?
some of this has to do with being, I know you don't need to have the correct answers for the math, but when I went through and all of a sudden I hit a little bit of a roadblock, I realized that I was skimming instead of actually reading the numbers. And that made me kind of connect to maybe some of this is supposed to relate a little bit to mindfulness.
Yeah, it's also, that's really important point, because when we read to ourselves, or this, one of the things in the math exercises, if you can do it, if it's not painful, we really want you to write the answers down. So it forces you to slow down. So when you do that first problem, write the answer. Now in your book, there are some sleeves that you could put the pages in if you wanted to, and a dry erase marker, so that you didn't have to keep making photocopies of the pages. And it's in a 3-ring binder, so you can take them out of the binder and put them inside that sleeve. But discipline yourself to literally answer the question. If you can't write it for whatever reason, speak it out loud. Like 1 + 2 = 3 before you go on to the next problem. If you don't want to use the dry erase markers on the page in the sleeve, just write the answer on another piece of paper next to it. The point is, make your brain work a little bit and make your brain slow down. Does that help? Yes, Ginger.
On the math questions, I guess my question is, so we start with the first page and do we go all the way through and then come back and start over? Because there's a lot of math pages here. So
Yeah, and
just go all the way through, or?
yeah, and Patricia, this is where I told you the wrong thing the other day. The answer is yes, Ginger. You in 10 minutes try to go through however many pages you can, whether it's 1 page, 3
Right.
pages, 5, then stop. The next day that you do your math exercises, pick up where you left off.
Okay.
And you'll see there's like 9 or I think there's like 12 sections, and there's even more math problems if we need them. They keep downloading new ones, but you'll see that is the biggest section of the book.
Right.
But yeah, so mark yourself where you ended, and then the next day start. And yeah, and if it ever gets to the point where you're just struggling with the math, it's making you nervous, go back to the beginning. Remember what Wendy said on that call? She was getting frustrated because the problems, she felt she should be working more difficult problems. And so she was working at it. And then she found, and people around her found, that she was starting to lose her ability to remember things again. She was starting to kind of wander. And her son said, go back, Mom, go back to the first pages and start again. And she did that, and within a week, she was back to where she was. So it's okay to go back. The goal is ultimately to go through the whole sections, but only at your pace.
Thank you.
2 questions about that.
Mhm.
If we're going to pick up where we left off, we really don't need the marker, right?
Well, that depends on whether you want to be, if you're going to think you're going to want to use that page again later, if you slide it in the sleeve,
Mhm.
that page is going to be pristine for when you want to go back. Because I'm not making all those more copies.
Okay, I see what you mean. We just continue on, but there may be a point where we decide we want to go back or something. Okay.
Exactly.
And
And you
I
can
just had
remember,
one other quick question.
sure.
Somebody there was referring to a scanning. Oh, Carol said, I found myself sort of scanning through. So if we glance and we know that 4 and 1 is 5, and we don't really pay attention to 1 and 4 is 5, is that okay? Or are we
No,
supposed to slow down and go 1 and 4 is 5?
yes. Whether you say it out loud or not, that's up to you. But you definitely want to stop, write it down, whether it's on the page in the book,
Mhm.
a separate piece of paper, or if you're just talking out loud to yourself, 1 + 4 is 5, that's the goal.
So we do focus on each number.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Carol, your hand.
Yeah, I see at the bottom of each page is how long did it take? Do we do it page by page, or just however many pages you can do in 10 minutes?
Good
And
question.
then
That,
time.
yeah, what seems to, you could do it either way. The answer is there's never going to be a hard and fast. What seems to work best for a lot of people is they start their timer at 0 and they go to 10 minutes, and then they just write the number of pages that they got done. but if you are super competitive and you want to know how many minutes did it take you to do page 1, you can write that down. Okay, it's because the cool thing about keeping track like this is it's your own gauge on how you're doing. Because we're not in a competition with each other. There's no race, but it's a way for you to judge progress. Any other questions on the math while we're on the math section?
Can I just share an experience that I had after our first, meeting, and we were talking about how long things took, or whatever. And I do Sudoku puzzles every single day. I have an app on my phone, and I probably do about 10 of them a day. And I've been doing them for years. And I started doing them actually for my brain, because I had heard it was really good. But after our first, get together, there's a timer on it, and I can see how long it takes me to do a puzzle. And I knew what my average was, and years ago I could do it a little bit faster, but I wasn't doing as difficult a puzzle either. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try and do this a little bit faster. And what happened to me was, by doing it, trying to do it faster, I was stressing myself out, and I was missing, and I was making errors, and I was doing all these things. And then I started finding myself feeling confused and doubting, how come my brain is not doing this like it used to 2 days ago? And I just went, calm down, just do it in the pace that is comfortable, and don't try and be competitive with myself.
Right. And that's important. That is important. I will say one thing though. On the last facilitator meeting I was in, somebody mentioned Sudoku, and because they said, I'm doing that, can I do that instead? It's more interesting. And the answer was, from a brain science standpoint, it's not touching the same area of the brain as these exercises do. So nothing wrong with doing them, but don't do them in lieu of. It's fascinating. One of the things I hope we'll do over the course of this is we'll have like brain articles, so we learn together more and more about how our brains work, and hopefully you guys may say, hey, here's an article we should all read. So I'm looking kind of forward to that conversation. Two more things.
I just want to say, I would never substitute Sudoku for it. I think I was just trying to say that if you push yourself to do something and it starts stressing you out, that's another way of kind of creating some confusion.
Right, absolutely. Stress is not good. Two more things, just in general. We know we do handwriting, and we know we will do reading and reading out loud. And then there's journal writing. So the handwriting is all about journaling. In the book, in the last part of the book, there are prompts, writing prompts for topics. And that's some of the things I kind of like to get your opinion on as a group. And in section 3, it's actually labeled in your book. It's tabbed handwriting. There are handwriting exercises, and if you flip to the first page that has the number 1, the first idea is write about what you like to do for fun. Now, this is also, there are over almost 200 different topics to write on, and we can do a couple things. The point of handwriting, again by hand, print or cursive, up to you, is to get your brain thinking and then being able to move your thoughts down to paper. So we can either follow these prompts as a group, and then maybe in our check-ins, one person could say, well, we all were going to write about what we like to do for fun. We won't have time in a check-in to hear everybody. But we might say, hey, Sharon, next week, would you like to talk about that prompt? And you can say, sure. But we all would do that particular prompt. So that's one idea. Another idea is, if you don't want to be prompted on what you want to write, you don't have to. Just keep a journal. And it could be as you work through these questions, it's kind of like a journal of your life. If you start to look at the questions, you start to remember, oh, this is who I am. And you start to write that story about who you are. And so I found that kind of interesting because it really, these aren't things that come to mind all the time, but when you have to spend 10 minutes just trying to answer that question, it may bring up memories. One of the examples that somebody who's been doing this program for a long time gave was they started to feel that they were getting a lot more dreams. They were trying to figure out what's going on there. And the thinking was, this is just a theory, there's no science on this one, was because you're thinking so deeply about some of these questions about yourself, it's all about you, it is bringing up memories that you had long forgotten. And so maybe that does drive your dream state a little bit differently. So what are your thoughts on writing? Do you, as a group, do you want to try to follow the prompts, or would you prefer to write something that's just uniquely interesting to you? Show of hands. Who wants to go off the grid and just do their own thing? Okay, Don, you're not raising your hand either way.
You just had one choice, and there's
Well-
another choice to
Well,
follow.
who wants to? Okay, oh, I was going to go by default.
Focus.
So two people want to go off the grid and do their own thing. I was going to say by default, the rest of us are going to follow the prompts, at least for the start. Show of hands, yes or no? Yes.
Follow the
Hand up.
prompts.
Yes.
Follow
Well,
the-
I noticed something. I read most of them today because I realized I was looking for one where the thoughts came automatically and I could keep writing them down the page. But just about every one of them would require me sitting there and thinking, what do I want to put on the page? And I didn't know. I had a feeling that that we should be writing on something that comes as more of a flow, because the objective is the handwriting, right?
The objective is forming the thought that creates the writing flow. It's not so much your handwriting, other than when you're able to think it and then translate that thought onto paper in writing, it is stimulating another part of your brain.
So if you have to sit there for a while and think, what do I want to write, or what idea do I have? That's okay.
Sure. Again, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And that's why the prompts might help, because it's like, oh, I'm going to write about what my friends and how would my friends and family describe me? The topic's already chosen for you. And now you have to think about it. And in 10 minutes, write about it.
I think for me, I think I like following their prompts because it's more of a challenge, and it would force me to think more, having to answer their question, rather than if I came up with a question, I could, what do you like to eat for dinner? Pick something, you might be tempted to just pick something kind of easy breezy with that you don't have to think about. But having to answer some of these questions, for me at least, it would prompt me to really, like you were saying, kind of force you to really stop and think about the answer and dust off old memories
Yeah.
and answer them. So that's why I like the idea of going with their prompts.
Well, it
Did
is.
you have a particular thought when you said we'd all do the same prompt instead of each of us picking a prompt that we wanted to write?
No, well, part of it was to see if everybody, I'm going to use this as, if everybody wrote about the first question, what do you like to do for fun? Even though we're all not going to share that at the check-in, everybody's already been thinking about that. And so when you start to talk about it, if it's your turn to share, we're all going to be already on that same page with you, because we're going to go, oh, I
Okay.
know what you did. It's not critical though,
Yeah.
because you would introduce the topic that you chose to write on no matter what. So that's why I think it's totally fine if you're more comfortable, or you already know you want to start a journal on something and you have your own questions that you're going to write about. That's fine. It's,
I use the ones in the book for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if we work through them, and it could be that, hey, you know what, this week, and we could talk about this at the check-ins, maybe somebody's got a favorite question that was prompted in the book that they want to write about. You could say, you could offer that up and say, next week, I'd really like us to talk about this, because I'm going to write about it. There is no hard and fast. We're going to go, other than the math, which we really want to follow the progression of the pages. The important thing is start a timer. We have Alexa in the house. I also have my iPhone, so I'll start my timer on my iPhone when I start, whether it's math or handwriting or reading. And at 10 minutes, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to work on that, because that's a discipline in and of itself. If you start getting in, your hours and hours and hours of writing, you kind of lost the reason for why we're doing this, only from the standpoint of how much time you can dedicate. So I would say, at our first check-in, which is on May 9th, we will discover what we chose to write about. I see your hand, Carol. Thank you. Thank you, Don. And then we'll go from there. This next 2 weeks, we're going to test ourselves. Carol.
Yeah, I was just wondering in the writing if going back and looking at and describing a memory, does that fulfill what this is going to do? So like if I was to write about going to a Led Zeppelin concert for 10 minutes back in the 60s, would that qualify for
Sure.
thinking about it?
Absolutely. I mean, anything you want to write about that interests you, that isn't just like, as Ginger said, oh, I'm going to pick something super easy because I don't feel like thinking about it. You're challenging yourself, right? You're challenging yourself to remember things or to be creative in how you express what you want to say. So we've talked about the math. We've talked about the writing. We didn't talk about the reading yet. And that's the third piece, is reading out loud. So reading out loud is actually very important. So again, 10 minutes every day, pick something that you enjoy reading. It could be a book, it could be a magazine, it could be, Ginger, your recipes, it could be anything that you enjoy reading, and make yourself read out loud. This is super important. Reading to yourself is fine, but for the purposes of this 10-minute exercise, what's important for this program is that you literally slow down, you read out loud, you stop at the periods, you go add a question in your voice if you've got a question when you're reading it, because your brain is listening and you are forcing yourself to pay attention as you read. Now, one of the things that we can do is, if you have somebody in your life that you like to chat with, a father, sister, brother, child, grandson, whatever, friend, it's totally okay to say, can I read with you? And you can choose. And I saw a lot of the folks who did this program, they did, after a while, they buddied up and they'd say, let's read book X. And for 10 minutes, one person would spend time reading to the other, and then they'd change the chapter and the other person would read back to them. And if they were reading the newspaper to each other, it's a nice way to connect with another person. And it's a nice way just to have some fun. Not necessary. It's another way to help hold yourself to account to actually doing the reading out loud. How do you feel about that, or questions do you have about this?
I think the one thing I was worried about was that it just adds one more thing that I have to arrange to have a time to do it with somebody. So the not doing it with someone seems an easier deal. At some point I may change, I suppose. I don't naturally have, oh, sorry, we're going to be noisy, but I don't naturally have somebody that, oh, I'll come back.
I just want to say, I usually like to, I'll go to bed and read for a few minutes. And so I read to my dog, who probably fell asleep, but it was just a weird thing to read out loud. I can't remember the last time I read out loud to somebody, anybody. But I can see that I felt it did force me to think more and pay more attention to what I was reading, as opposed to just, reading quietly. So yeah, it was interesting.
If Tequila starts to read back to you, Ginger, call me.
Oh, I'll call the news.
Sharon, did you have your hand up, or?
Yeah, I'm sort of in line with Kate that I don't really want to add another thing to my calendar of scheduling to read with another person. And another thing that comes to mind is that if I was reading to another person, I might be concentrating more on how I sound to the other person and paying attention to what I'm reading for myself. So two reasons why I'd prefer just to do it on my own.
Yeah, and it does that's that all logical, all makes sense. Kate, you're back.
I am back, sorry. Somebody goes by on the street. Anyway, I think the thing that I found, and I'd already done this, I'm in a long-term Bible study, and we did a book that really seemed like it was a senior level seminary book. And I would get to the bottom of the page and I had gotten lost. I didn't know what I just read, and I would read it again, but silently. And I finally learned, and this is just earlier this year, well, end of last year, I started reading it out loud. So I read it to my dogs, and they didn't take in much, but I took in a lot because I said it out loud, and I could do the commas and the periods and stuff, which you tend to skip over when you're reading silently, because it's just on to the next word. So I do think that reading out loud is going to be very beneficial.
So it helped you to remember what was on the page too?
It did. It did.
It did. Okay.
Somehow saying it out, reading it and then having it verbalized out again is like a double whammy for me. So I assume that might happen for other people, where you're kind of doing it two ways. So yeah, because otherwise I probably would have dropped out of that study.
John, do you have any thoughts?
It's going to be strange reading to another person. Haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah.
I think there's also some, Kate, you said two ways. It's actually, I've heard it's three ways. You're seeing it, you're saying it, and you're hearing it.
There you go. Yeah.
So you're getting it multiple times. Yeah. And I did a little bit of, reading out loud before we met. And I thought, this is really going to help me when I get to my book club. Then I'm going to remember the stories a little bit better on the discussion, because I've got some much younger people that are in my book clubs, and they're just like, oh yeah, I remember this detail and I remember that. And I'm going, I just finished the book 5 days ago and I don't remember that.
Yeah. Okay. We have about 10 minutes, so I want to do a couple things. Reinforce. This is all about a journey for yourself, right? The goals, think about the goals I want to on our next check-in, which is on the 9th, I really would like you to have your own, this is a request, you don't have to do it. Take a couple minutes and actually write down your personal goal for starting this program. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but this is where I would strongly recommend that grab a little notebook or a piece of paper, I have to find my calendar, and start to write the things that come to you over the course of the next couple of weeks. What are you noticing? But at this top of the page, I would really hope that you write your own goal statement, because that's what will anchor you to why are you doing this program. So I would ask that, and you don't have to share that with anybody. It's really for you. So starting tomorrow, you can start today if you want, but starting tomorrow, the goal is to do 10 minutes. Do all of you have a way to time yourselves? Okay, so set your timer, and you don't have, by the way, you don't have to do 30 minutes straight. If it's simpler for you to say, I'm going to do 10 minutes, I feel like doing my math this morning, I'm going to do it at 10 minutes this morning. I think I'm going to read later tonight. I'm going to do my handwriting some other time. That's okay. If you are a straight line thinker though, and you want to get it done in 30 minutes, that's okay too. Goal, try to commit 10 minutes on each of the segments throughout the course of the day, every day, 5 days minimum. If you can do it 7 days, great. Sharon.
So earlier, you were saying that if someone was getting bogged down with the math and that at the end of, they did 4 pages and it only took them 5 minutes, they could quit. So that I'm confused. I feel like you've been saying 2 different things that are opposite of each other.
Okay, in the case of math, the reason I said that is because trying to get, if you can blow through 10 pages of math in 10 minutes, good for you, but it's not necessary. The general recommendation is about 4 pages is what most people can process, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. If you do it in 5 minutes, it's okay to stop for the day.
Okay.
It's okay. The ones that you don't want to shortchange for sure is the writing and the reading out loud. If you're still, if you finish in 4 pages in 5 minutes and you're feeling, I can still do this, do more. That's totally fine. Just try to hold yourself to 10 minutes.
Well, because also at the beginning, it was saying to do all of the processes for 20 to 30 minutes a day. It's like, well, how would you only do 20 minutes if you're doing 10 minutes on 3 different things? So that's confusing to me.
Because they're trying, the example you gave, like let's say you get through your math in 5 minutes. So that, and you stop after 4 pages, that's fine. But you'll have 10 minutes of writing, 10 minutes of reading out loud. So that's only 25 minutes. The goal is don't shortchange yourself, but don't stress yourself. Where you spend, if the math is getting more difficult or you're just tired, spend a little more time on handwriting or a little more time on reading to round that out. But don't feel that if you're done, you have to just keep going for 10 minutes if you're done.
When you may not do all 3 on the same day.
Exactly. No, the goal is to do all 3 on the same day.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you.
forget what I said.
I've already forgotten it. No, you do want to do each of the 3 sections, reading, writing, and math every day. So that's, if you're exact, you're going to go 30 minutes, 10 minutes for each, correct? But if you get done with your math faster and you don't feel like going for 5 or 6 or 7 pages, stop with your math and then do 10 minutes of reading and 10 minutes of writing.
Okay.
Is it important not to go over 10 minutes for the handwriting?
I think because this is a daily exercise you're creating, and your brain doesn't need more. They've tested that actually, and doing longer didn't improve the results. 10 minutes was the sweet spot. That doesn't mean you can't read later in the day. It's just when you're trying to do this focused work, hold yourself to the 10.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the handwriting. Because if you can't finish your thoughts completely in 10 minutes, and you may need to finish what it is that you want to say in a little bit longer. I was
Okay.
just wondering if there was, like a limit, like don't do an hour.
I would say don't do an hour. Because at that, I mean, really, you're gonna, if we're gonna try to do this every single day for 5 to 7 days, you'll burn yourself out. You'll get tired. So maybe just put a placeholder, put a pin. Don't stop in the middle of a thought. Finish your thought, but don't start writing the whole next chapter. Make that the next day's activity.
So you can continue on maybe the same story the next day
Yeah,
for 10 minutes?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have questions. We are about 5 minutes. Do you feel, and this is just another show of hands, do you feel ready to make this commitment to yourself to start the program?
Yeah, I just doubt myself.
When you said at least 5 days a week, that helped.
Okay.
Because I have days that are just like running from beginning to end. So it gives me,
Absolutely.
okay, I get an out on a day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if wishes were horses, we would all be doing 7 at one, something every single day. That's not realistic for most people, but try to get 5 in.
Yeah, I do have maybe one exception. I'm doing a 4-day camping trip in May. And when I do that 4-day camping trip, I don't intend to be taking my writing booklet with me.
It's up to you. That is totally up to you. I told Don, we're leaving for Ohio tomorrow morning. And I said, I'm going to be taking my pages with me. Because I want to have 2 weeks, but when we have our check-in, I want to have 2 weeks to tell you about. On the check-ins, Mondays at 1 o'clock, does that work for you?
You should, yeah.
We may have to, I'm sorry, Sharon?
I think most of the time it will.
Yeah. And how about recording? Is that okay with you?
Mhm.
Okay. We will try to keep the check-ins no more than 45 minutes because they're really intended just to help us kind of touch base with where we're doing. I'm hoping, like I said, yes, Sharon.
So when you're talking about recording, if you're asking us to read what we wrote down, our vignettes, I'm not sure I feel comfortable having my vignettes recorded.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's fair. Absolutely. And I don't, in 45 minutes, we won't be able to actually read it. We'll probably just sort of say, what were your highlights? You wrote about what makes you fun or what makes you happy with fun. I wouldn't expect that you're going to be reading to us. It would be like, here's what I discovered when I wrote about that. I forgot I liked to hopscotch, or I forgot I liked whatever. Okay.
Thanks.
But anytime you feel uncomfortable with the recording, we will not do it. As far as the Zoom link that we have is the one that we will use. I'm going to touch base with the book club though, because if they want to use Google Meet, I don't want to have to kick one group off because we grabbed it first. So for the 9th, I know that's not a book club meeting day, so that's not going to be a problem. So keep this Zoom link and the password information handy. I will set up automatic reminders for do you prefer the day of or the day before?
Day of is fine for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dawn, who is also a participant, has volunteered with a little bit of persuasion to take notes because I can't think and take notes at the same time. And so what I'm hoping to do is at the end of a check-in is just send out some quick notes. Here's what we talked about. Here's what we're going to do next. Okay. And any of you are absolutely free to edit those and say, we didn't do that. Or
I don't remember that.
last question I have is, are you comfortable sharing contact information? I'm going to share my personal phone number with you. You already have my email. How do you feel about that? That's in case you want to get in touch with somebody else, or do I need to BCC everybody so that you don't know who is on the chain? Ginger's okay.
I'm fine.
And
Yeah,
Jane,
email, fine.
Patricia, you're okay?
mhm.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put together a little stronger memory group, SMG. Are you okay with acronyms? Or is SMG okay?
Oh, stronger memory group, sorry. I'm terrible with acronyms and stuff, but as long as I don't have to work and do this, I'm probably able to keep track of a few acronyms.
The reason I say that is when I type the email, and Carol taught me this, it's good to put in the subject line what it is, so you know it's not spam. So
Yeah.
like the article I sent you from Shoreline Area News yesterday had NNN, stronger memory check-in or something like that. If I do NNN, SMG, I don't want to do SM because there's all sorts of connotations on that. If I do SMG, NNN, SMG, is that okay?
Yeah.
Don?
Yep, good.
Me.
All right.
Now, are we all doing the first one in the book for our writing, or what did we decide?
What we decided was Carol and Kate are going to write about something that is interesting to them. The others of us said, nah, we're gonna take that first one and write about what is fun, what we like to do is fun. Is that the first one, I think?
Oh, literally the
Yeah.
first.
And to
Literally,
be honest,
number
I'm-
one.
Yeah, honestly, to me, I probably will go in order of these because I looked through and I liked all of them. I didn't really find any that I found objectionable. So,
Okay, well then, Patricia,
But-
start with number one, which is write about what you like to do for fun. 10 minutes. No more, except for Carol, who might need to keep writing. Any other questions or thoughts before we end today's call?
I just want to thank you very much for all of the hard work you guys have put in, and I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to going through this.
Oh,
I'm excited. I'm excited for all of us. I
Yeah.
really am. And the
Thank
one thing to, maybe this, you write this down, is don't expect to see after you've done one day or 1 week that you're suddenly no longer needing Post-it notes. Not gonna happen. We could go 12 weeks and you're still finding a Post-it note helpful. But I'm hoping it will be something much less. And I'm actually hoping that after about 4 to 8 weeks, some of us are able to cite examples of, I just noticed this was different for me.
Yeah.
And that's to me a huge victory. I would also invite any of you to either send me an email or call me. I will give you my phone number, or call me if at any time you're feeling stressed or stuck, or you just want somebody to talk to about this. I'm open for that.
Thank you.
yeah,
All
I
right.
appreciate that.
Okay,
All right.
Have a safe and
thank
safe
you.
trip to Ohio.
Thank you. We'll
Have a
see
great
you.
time.
See you on May 9th. 1
Okay,
o'clock.
Okay.
say,
Sharon,
When are
okay.
you leaving?
we're leaving early tomorrow morning.
Okay, that answered the question I put in chat. Okay,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't, it's hard for me to monitor the chat and talk. Yeah, we won't be at games.
yeah, I need to find someone else going to be at games because I may be late. So I need to have someone that can start it for me.
Why don't we talk offline after this?
Okay,
Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a good couple of weeks. Let's get stronger memories.
Yay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, Sharon, why don't you stay on?
that's what I'm planning on doing.
Well, okay, well, I was starting to leave the meeting for all. I went, oh, no. Okay. Oh, sorry, Don. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to cancel the games or what do you want to do?
I'm not sure because my boyfriend is staying over Tuesday night and he has an interview he has to do at noon. And so he doesn't want to leave and be in transit.
Oh,
So-
wait.
Hey, Dan, hi, it's Don Beacom.
Sorry.